Hello, everybody. It's Heather with the Leadership Heart Podcast. And today I am tickled pink to have my friend Garry Turner on. He is in the UK, someone I actually met, I don't know how many years ago, but it was on LinkedIn. We were both part of this Human First Club. And just over time, like I've been on his podcast, on his shows, and I said, I have to be around this guy more. I just have to have him around me more. And so he happens to be like Brooke and Brian, the ones that you heard prior. He's one of the Caring Leadership coaches that I hand selected to be a part of this new caringleadership.co community. And it's aligned with, of course, the book, The Art of Caring Leadership. And so just love him, love him, love him. So welcome, Garry.
Wow, can I record that intro and like put it on my LinkedIn or something? Thank you so much. It's amazing to be with you. So good.
So tell everybody a little bit about you, just a little about you, your background, your journey to caring leadership, and then of course, why you decided to say yes when I invited you to be a coach.
Do you know something? That's the real privilege, right, Heather? When you made that phone call to me, I was just like, what? Me? Why? And it reminded me actually of that low self-worth place I used to live in. And I think that's been a big part of my journey the last 5 years in particular, is realizing that without the self-leadership part, if we don't lead ourselves first, if we don't like ourselves first, if we don't believe in ourselves first, the outside world's not going to shift. Like, you're not going to be able to achieve, what you think good looks like, or success or contribution, if you don't actually like what's inside. And it took me 39 years, Heather, to work that out. And that's pretty much the journey I've been on the last 5 years, is sort of unpicking all of those learned behaviors of, I'll be good enough when, or if I've got the car, I'll be good enough, or when I've got the progression, I'll be good enough. And as soon as I started to care about myself more, guess what happened? I started being able to give more of that to other people. And I think that's been one of the biggest shifts. And so, yeah, I've not really told you much about me yet. Sorry, I went straight down the rabbit hole, Heather.
Tell us more about you, because I'm going to learn more too, I'm sure.
Yeah, so that's the real Garry you just heard. That's like no filter, vulnerable, straight down the rabbit hole. But the reason I can now do that now is, as I say, I've actually worked in corporate. A lot of people don't realize that sometimes, is that I have a corporate role where I look after, significant multi-million-dollar business for a service organization. But that's just part of me. And I think that's been one of the big parts of my journey, again, the last 5 years, is realizing that we are these whole intersectional, complex, fun, joyous, slightly crazy sometimes human beings. We're all of that. We're not just the one work subset of, like, my role is X and that's all I am. And it took me a long time to realize that. And so I really enjoy now, Heather, being one of your handpicked caring leadership coaches. It just excites me so much about the work you're bringing with caring leadership. But I bring that to life through someone that's actually still doing the work, leading on people, leading on culture, someone that's developing multi-million-dollar businesses. So I really bring quite a unique blend of not only heart and belief in better through people and through better cultures, but I've got the evidence of why this matters by actually increasing sales and margin over a 3-year period by doing the very stuff that you talk about in the book. So it's just really, really exciting to be able to bring this to life through practicality.
You talk a lot about vulnerability, and well, first I want to know why that's so important to you, why vulnerability is so important to you, and kind of when that started. And then, what do you think are some of the challenges to leaders out there to becoming more vulnerable?
Yeah, so for me, it was really, again, I didn't know vulnerability was a thing. I knew vulnerability was a bad thing. If you've got a computer and a virus attacks you, that's not a good vulnerability to have, right? Nobody wants that one. And I guess, of course, we always look to Brené Brown. So I saw her first TED Talk, The Power of Vulnerability, several years ago. And again, it's really an inflection point for me. As I say, 5 years ago, I started on my sort of unpicking of not feeling I was good enough journey. And it was on about year 2 of that. So 3 years ago, I saw her TED Talk. And it just opened me up. I was just like, oh my God. So there is a power in showing more of our true selves, not showing everything, not being, I think some people call it, like a personal vomit, like, here's all my life story, let me throw it all at you. Like, hopefully you can make your way through it all, but from a more considered, something, if I show a bit more of me, a bit more of my journey, a bit more of the difficulties I've had, where I've had to ask for help, where sometimes I'm not good or the good version of me. Just really sharing a few of those nuggets over time help build what I call the vulnerability muscle. So it's a practice. The more we practice being vulnerable, the more comfortable we get with it. And I think that's been the big thing for me the last few years, is going from this, I need to be vulnerable to be able to connect better, which is true, to actually, I connect well with people anyway, and vulnerability just happens to be one vehicle to do that. But when I do role model it, when I do express a bit more of who I am, it always, Heather, always attracts. It never repels. And that's been one of the biggest lessons I've learned.
And then what do you think, like, why do so many leaders period, for sure, male leaders, why do they struggle with vulnerability?
I honestly think it's because a lot of leaders, particularly that may look or sound like me, particularly in this current world, very challenging, very difficult to navigate, we're just not used to saying, I don't know. We're not used to saying, we're not good enough, or we need help, or we're just not used to being perfect. And I think that goes for everybody, no matter what human you are, no matter what your intersectionality. But there is, look at education, Heather. Like, we've never been taught to be vulnerable. We've never been taught emotion. It's been taught there's right and there's wrong. So what do we do? As long as we think we're right, that's where we stay. And I think that's what we're starting to unpick now. I think in workplace in particular, and what you're doing with the book is, it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to ask for help, because guess what? That moves me and all of us forward. Whereas if I'm a senior leader or a CEO holding clenched fists, I can't be vulnerable, you're not just holding yourself back, you're holding everybody back. So it's moving from this I to we mindset. And that's a really big shift that's underway, I think.
Yes, I think of, as you say that, I think of Jim Reuter. He's the president and CEO of First Bank, and he shows up in the book, and his style is absolutely to kind of bring people to the table that are better than him in so many regards in certain areas. And so he just does it. It's not, it's like, I'm not even sure it's vulnerability. I mean, it's just like, I guess it is vulnerability, but it's so natural that it doesn't feel like he's starting. It's just, I do this, you do this, like, this is my strength, this is your strength. And so I'm always going to bring you in. So it's like, it's not even necessarily saying like, help me. It's just, he knows what he doesn't know. So he's always going to include those people that fill in his gaps. And I think it's interesting to see it that way too, right? Because he doesn't come off to me as a leader who's like weak, or, I mean, he's a white male president and CEO of a company, right? He doesn't come off to me though as like this, when he's doing this thing I just described to you. I don't see him as some like weak person. I see him as an empowerer, is what I see. When he's like, I can't do, like, come you, and he's bringing all these people, and then he knows that are like way better in certain areas. He to me looks stronger.
That's beautiful. And you know what comes up for me as you were sharing that as well? I felt that image, and it's not even that he's empowering and saying, hey, I've got this big ball of power. Let me give you a little bit so you can be great. It's actually, the empowerment comes from him getting out of the way and saying, you are great. I don't need to get in your way. Which I think a lot of people get
Yes.
empowerment mixed up. It's all like, actually, no, I'm going to relinquish
Yes.
power and give it to you. Like, no. I'm just going to get out of your way and let you be brilliant.
Yes. Thank you for that. Ooh, that gave me chills. Oh, okay. I'm geeking out now. Totally geeking out. And it's true, because when I talk about in the book, I'm like, empowerment and delegation are not the same. And delegation is that idea of like, I got this big block of power, I'm going to give you something to you and you go do this thing, right? And while we need to delegate, and there's benefits there, and empowerment does have an element of delegation in it, the empowerment is this whole idea of like, can I put you in a position to shine? I know your strengths. I'm putting you over here so you can actually live to those strengths. And so you want to go over there because that's where you really should be. And I love that idea of like, yeah, thank you. Ooh, thank you for giving me a geek out time here. That when we think of caring leadership, the reason why I decided to have not just a book, but the caring leadership community with coaches and academy and assessment and all that, is because I often find myself reading a book and I'm like, wow, that was awesome. I'm gonna write like these 3 things down. These are really cool. And then I might do something, and then I might not do something. And I have to make sense of it by myself, unless I do like my own informal book club or something, which I'm not going to do. So then I'm like, well, but in this case, creating the self-assessment, creating the community where there's all these people there that are kind of similarly situated. They may not be in same title, same role or anything, but they're all just on this journey of trying to become more caring. Then you have the academy that's there to help fill gaps, and the coaches that are there again to help you to just continue to sharpen that, already existing process that you're on in the journey you're on. And so it just had to be an experience. I just didn't want it to be just a book. And so that's why I brought 8 coaches. I really did hand select. I hand selected for what I saw in them in the world. So it wasn't just like a name, or in this case, you were working in another position, but I knew that there are going to be people that are going to be called to someone who looks like you, who sounds like you, who has your background, who has your common experience. And so I need someone there who feels called to that, because they're not going to be called to Heather, right? So everybody's called different people. So every single one of the people are so diverse in their own way. And I knew that other folks coming in may just be, again, more attracted to that and want to be more aligned with that. And so I'm just, like I said, I'm so thrilled to have you, in that community with, showing up like you are and being so vulnerable and leading with that, with being okay with that. And I know that you believe so wholeheartedly, and you are one of the people that I think is an embodiment of caring leadership. Are you perfect? Absolutely not. I'm not perfect. I wrote the book on it. Right? I've got a podcast called Leadership with Heart. It's like, and I wish I could tell you that every single day I was heart-centered, like every single element, every single day. I think I wake up that way. My intent is there. I don't always show up that way, right? And caring leadership is about behaving in certain ways.
Yeah, and
Right, Garry?
I think community is so important, and that's why I'm really pleased with what you're doing. Because when I look at a book, or when I even look in my own work, how often do we transfer honestly what we've learned into practice? And I think that's what the community is critical for. It's absolutely critical, because I on my own can go so far, but if I can bounce that idea, if I can go, hey Heather, I did this the other day, and I did it in the community actually last week. I had a massive faux pas with someone in my network. I actually hurt their feelings significantly. What could I do is come to the caring leadership community and say, hey, I made this mistake. This is what I learned from it. Does anybody else have a similar experience, or has anybody else had that feeling? And then people are sharing their experience. So it's not just a sort of happy clappy, oh, that made me feel better as Garry. What it was about was, I've got a lived experience. I've really suffered and learned through that. Maybe someone else in the community could also benefit, and I might learn from them as we light this conversation around this example. You can't do that on your own.
I love that. Why do you keep giving me chills? I'm not joking. If you could see on my arm right now, there's like the hair is standing up. I just love it. So you're like, you may be drinking the caring leadership Kool-Aid, but it's because it's needed. Like people are reaching out left and right, saying, "I love this concept. Oh, it makes me feel this way." Well, it's supposed to, because caring leadership makes us feel cared for. It's a feeling. But in the background, it's a process, it's actions, it's behaviors, it's day to day sticking out there. But caring leadership isn't easy. I mean, being a manager of people is not easy. And then being a caring leader is harder, because we have to be more self-aware, we have to be more empathetic and compassionate, all the things we talk about. But it's not easy. I mean, this is hard stuff. It takes a lot of energy. You're exhausted at the end of the day being that kind of leader. You have to do what I say, though, and what Garry's talking about, this idea of self-leadership. You have to fill yourself up. You cannot give from an empty cup. And if you got to give from the overflow, right? You got to give from what you have, but you have to give yourself a lot. So not this Friday, but next Friday, I just decided, okay, so I've had 2 different spa gift cards. One, I did a free speaking event, and some ladies gave me like a massage and a pedicure, and I never did it. And it's about to expire, like in about a week and a half. And so then my kids got me something for Christmas, and it was another spa card. And they're like, I'm not getting you another spa card. You never use your spa cards. You just never do. So this time I'm like, you know what? They're right. And I am taking care of myself in a big way. So I decided to not only take those 2 things they gave me, but I expanded into a full day spa day next Friday. So, I mean, I will get a glass of wine for lunch. I said, I deserve it. I have to do it. I have to do it for me. So I can then show up. I have 4 kids, so I'm leading them. I have another team. I have people who look to me in the world, right? And I look to them, and I have to show up with fullness. I have to lean into myself, and I can't do that if I haven't cared for me.
So important. And a lot of people use this analogy of being on a plane and the oxygen mask. You can't be good for others if you can't be good for yourself, and it's true. But that's at a head level. Take that into the heart level. What does it feel like when you're trying to give from an empty cup, or you can barely breathe because you're so full of stuff going on in your life? It's painful. It's like we have to give ourselves permission to slow down, to recuperate, because that is an act of care. If we can't care for ourselves, we can't care for others. We just can't do it. Just can't do it.
I keep thinking about when you say that, it makes me think of those days that I allow myself to get there. I am not going to lie, where I'm like dropping off this kid, taking this kid, then I have this interview, then I have this client, I mean, it's just like, and I feel myself, I look up and I can feel the clench in my jaw. I'm just like, or like where I haven't advocated. So this part of self-care is advocating for ourselves too. And so then I haven't like properly advocated for people to help me around me, because again, I think I'm the superhero and I can do it all in that particular moment. Right. It's like cape, do 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 do, and it's like Heather and her cape, or I don't even know what it is, but I can't show up that way. I can't for others, because, and they know it. I had one of my sons one day. He's actually the son that's inside my book. He said to me, "Mom, why are you acting like you're a stay-at-home mom? Like, why are you trying to be at like all the events, like this, all that, all this? Because you're not. Now you may be at home in your business, but you're not a stay-at-home mom, meaning you don't have the ability to like spread yourself out and do all this stuff outside the home so much because you have a business you're running." And it's like, at that point, I think it was 13. I had my 13-year-old tell me, "Heather, Mom, calm it down. Like, calm it down. You can't be super mama. Even though we think of you that way, you can't do 5,000 things and still keep it together." So it's just understanding that in the moment. And I think that's the reason why it's the first chapter and the most robust chapter, is because those different elements of how we show up, and the control, the self-control we have or lack thereof, the self-awareness we have or lack thereof, really is at the forefront of caring leadership, isn't it? It really is. If we aren't congruent with what we say we value, if we aren't intentional every day as much as we can be, and we just let the day kind of take us away, we won't show up. We just won't show up with care. We won't listen well, actively asking the right questions. We can't create a safe space of trust, because we have no time to build trust, because we have no time to stick to what we said we're going to do for the people. I mean, there's all these things, how it just goes backwards, and you got to go forward and you got to go backward to keep doing that. So yeah, it's a head spinning thing. I mean, I feel so blessed to be on the journey with people like you, Garry, who I know, every day are very intentional about what you're doing in the world, and how you're trying to, put a humans first and a people first and a others first view of things out there. And hopefully those who are listening now can get a sense of feel that, and hopefully all that are listening will join the caring leadership community, so that you don't have to feel like you're alone. If you're a manager or a supervisor or someone who's aspiring to be there, you can go to caringleadership.co, join that community. It's free. I did that purposely, low barrier to entry. I want everybody there. And you can be a part of this community of people that are just heart-centered. Everybody's just on this journey. We're just like struggling together, trying to get better every day, but none of us are perfect. So you're definitely welcome. Garry, what are your final thoughts? What would be, for those people who might be struggling right now? Most people who are listening are probably leading at least one person, I'm imagining. So for those who are listening who are struggling right now to show up with more vulnerability, authenticity, with more care, what might be a tip you might leave them with?
Yeah, just one simple one from me is practice. Like, literally practice that muscle. And what I mean by that is, it's really simple, particularly with technology now. I know we're all busy, we have longer days, but what would it be like just to check in 10 minutes at the end of each of your working weeks and just say, "Hey, team, give me one word as to how you're feeling right now going into your weekend." Everyone goes around, one word. Okay, give me one sentence to explain the context behind that word. Literally 10 minutes, and everybody feels heard, everybody feels seen. You're not going to fix anything in 10 minutes, but everyone goes into their weekend feeling like they've been seen, feeling like they're a whole person. And then what you're doing then is creating one of those really simple, safe spaces, which other people then will step into with their vulnerability. So that's my invitation, really, is just have a little play, practice some little, make it fun, do more regular check-ins with people, but do just really invite people, to share those one-word check-ins, or, a statement to how they're feeling. and want to hear the answer, want to hear the response, not just throw it away. And you can do that in literally 10 minutes a week, and you'll be amazed at the multiplier effect of creating that space.
What I love about that is this idea, the idea of creating the little safe spaces. So that, like I talk about, safe spaces aren't possible without trust, but if you create these little things that Gary just talked about, which is brilliant, and you do that often, then when you get to the point where you need to create a big safe space on a topic that could be really, hard or tough, um, it's maybe easier for them to open up, right? They feel like they can speak their truth because you've created the little spaces along the way. You've opened up the door a little bit. And so you don't have to be frustrated when people aren't speaking up because you try to open up a big space and a huge forum. Instead, start small, practice often. I love that. Thank you so much, Gary. For those who are listening, if you got a little, you got a little bit of oomph out of this, you really felt like you've got some value, you understand some things more, caring leadership, you're thinking you're going to want to pass this on to other people, please do share it far and wide. And also don't forget to go to Apple Podcasts, write that 5-star review. That's how more people find us. And, this is not easy, this caring leadership journey, but I'm really thrilled to have you with us. And Gary, thank you so much for joining and for being one of the caring leadership coaches too.
Thank you so much. And thanks, everyone. Good luck.
Be well, everybody.